Welcome to this session. I would like to introduce you to a book I've been having a lot of fun with. It is called The Feeling of What Happens. It's by a very experienced, eminent, practicing neurosurgeon, neurologist at the University of Iowa College of Medicine in Iowa City, Dr. Antonio Damasio. In the beginning of this book, he is talking about the construction of consciousness. This sounds very abstract. What I find interesting is I'm seeing a connection between what he is saying and my tennis. He is talking in the beginning of the book about core consciousness. That is, the fundamental, most simple consciousness upon which all of the higher level kinds of things that we think about are built on. It's like the basement of a building. It's a very important place, and there are only certain things that can happen. In core consciousness, we are talking about the present. And Dr. Damasio divides it into two parts. The first part he calls images. I think of it as a sort of newspaper. If you can imagine a newspaper which reports everything you touch, everything you see, everything you smell, all of your movements, the internal feelings, all of this information. He calls that the images. That's part one. Part two is the self. That's more abstract, and yet it seems to be very important. The self is the sense that this body absorbed that information and was, above all, changed by it. Now, how does that apply to me? First of all, I have been working out for perhaps a year, hitting a ball, tennis ball with a racket, against a wall. And this wall was designed expressly for that. It has a white line painted on it at the height of standard tennis net. And it has a line on the asphalt painted where the back of the court would be. And I stand there and I hit the ball against the wall. And I have been getting pretty good at it after all of this experience. And I have been waiting to see how well it applies to my actual playing on the tennis court. After all, if I'm getting good at it, I should be able to get good at what's going on the tennis court. Well, something happened very interesting about a week ago. I was playing, and I started out hitting very well, but my playing obviously deteriorated. And within 10-15 minutes or so, I was playing rather like a beginner again. And it was a strange phenomenon, because it was as though I could remember hitting against the wall, but it was as though it never happened to me. I wasn't changed by it. In other words, I had lost that self. This is not just an abstract thing. My tennis was a disaster. rather than go see a psychiatrist, I decided this had something to do with an attack by some kind of organism, and I am assuming that that organism, whatever it was, decided it wanted the energy associated with that creation of the self, and it was going to take it whether I wanted that to happen or not. So where am I left? Actually, about 3 days later, I was guided to do a healing session without explanation, using the symbols that I have learned to use. As this session was about to complete, I was told that one of the primary targets of the session was an infection partly in my lung, partly in my central nervous system, of diphtheria that had been there since rather early childhood. It had never inflamed so to be detectable or diagnosed, but it had always been there. And it would be literally gone as a result of this healing session. I was glad to hear it. Then I heard, to my surprise, that it was this organism that had stolen the sense of self. Well, if that's so, it should make a difference when I play on the tennis court. Did it? Well, the last time I played, my opponent came up and congratulated me on playing so much better. In fact, when I ask my body, it says, yes. That sense of self was completely there, intact, nothing lost at all. Unfortunately, my opponent doesn't hit exactly like the wall does, but I did my best, and actually I did quite well. Made some very good shots, and he is complaining about having to learn some new techniques in order to keep beating me. That's not my problem. I'm rather enjoying it, in fact. But it is interesting that this concept in an abstract book is turning out to be directly applicable to whether or not I will win games on a tennis court. Now, I'm enjoying that. I still think that tennis is an absolutely wonderful feedback tool for somebody who is concerned about their physical and mental health and is unwilling to make excuses. How does this apply to you? Here is a suggestion you might want to adopt. We all make excuses, and we all happily just go on living, ignoring the fact that we are making excuses for defects in our whoever we are, whatever we're doing. Choose an activity, something that challenges every fiber of your body, and one which cannot be fooled, one in which you will lose if you make that excuse. For me, tennis fits perfectly. And then simply listen to what the feedback tool tells you. Have fun. I'll talk to you again.
Hola, Pedro.